Hello. Well, after that disastrous test I did last Sunday, where I forgot to screw the connectors up properly, so we got a lot of water into the supposedly watertight box. As I expected, the electronics was unaffected by the water after I dried it out. So we are back again here with the same setup, except I've got the box on the other side of the boat because it's lighter here. And I'm ready to try the test again, so that it is working. If I move the box around, then the rudder moves accordingly. And our horribly slow LoRa telemetry is working as usual. I should just point out that this screwdriver is magnetic, so when I use it to screw the lid on the IP68 box, it's going to cause the compass to move the rudder. That's no problem. I must get myself a demagnetizing device. Right, so the fire is on. I'll just take the lid off this thing. Come on off, come on off, come on off! You can have it round that way. Right, so while that's heating up, I'll go and get the temperature gauge and a tub of water. Well, the air coming out of this heater is at 68 degrees C. What the temperature of the equipment is at the moment I don't know, because it seems very variable as I move that probe around, but it's at least 40 degrees C. I would say that those metal bits are considerably hotter than that. I don't know, we'll say that it's at least, we'll say it's about 45 degrees C. So we verified it was still working and we plunged it into this bucket, but I forgot to turn the video camera on, so that's typical, isn't it? Dick was worrying that this metal thing is going to interfere with the compass. Well, probably it does, but we're not going to have this metal thing on here all the time. It's just holding the box down in the water. And in any case, the compass is still capable of detecting rotation, as you can probably hear the rudder moving as I move the whole bowl. So far, it looks not obviously wet inside, so we'll just leave it there and see what happens. While we're waiting for that to cool down, we have the ideal gas equation, which is pressure times volume equals some constant times the absolute temperature. So using that equation, we can estimate the pressure in the IP68 box after we've cooled it down as P2 over P1 equals T2 over T1, and T2 is 273 plus 14 degrees Celsius, and T1 was 273 plus 45, we'll say. So that means that P2 over P1 equals 0.9. Since P1 is atmospheric pressure, what that means is that the pressure differential across the box is 0.1 of an atmosphere, which is roughly speaking 1 meter, because 1 atmosphere equals 10.8 meters of water. So roughly speaking, plunging this into cold water like that after having heated it up is equivalent to putting it 1 meter underwater. Well, I think it's down at that water temperature now. Is it still working? Yeah, I think it is. As I turn that bowl, the rudder moves and the telemetry is okay. Right, so we better take it out now and inspect it. That movement of the rudder there is due to my magnetic screwdriver. It's not due to any unreliability in my software or hardware, I assure you. You don't believe me? Ah, you have little faith. I'm just going to just sort of dry the outside off with a towel. I think the rudder movement now is due to the fact that the compass is on its side, which is not intended to. It is tilt compensated, but it's not intended to compensate for an enormous tilt. Let me just put it down and see whether it stops. Yes, it does. Right. Now I'm just going to get some something to blow air around the edge of that first. Right. There may be a little water, I thought, trapped in this groove here, so I thought I'd just blow that out so that I don't get confused as to whether any water that I see might be inside or outside the box. Ah. Well, annoyingly, I can see some water inside the box. Would you believe it? Let's see if I can show that. I hope that you can just see that in the corner here below the black GPS unit there is a small amount of water. Enormously much less than we had last time, but still some. Right, I'll undo the box now. Right, I've undone the screws. Don't know why that screw never comes out. There we are. Right. You may be able to see there. There's a little water there. Let's get all the water at one end. Well, as I say, enormously much better than last time, but still completely unacceptable. One thing I did not do is test this IP68 box in this way before I had drilled some holes in it. So it's just possible that the leak may be coming through the box itself, or, as before, it may be coming through these damn connectors. So, I don't know, I think I'll get some hex nuts for these and maybe put some silicon sealant around the outside before I do them up next time and see if that improves things. What I will probably do is disconnect these connectors, disassemble them as before, and see whether there's any water in any particular one. Last time there definitely was not any water in this one, and there definitely was water in these, but that was because they weren't done up properly. They are done up properly at the moment, quite definitely. So if there's any water in them now, I wish to make a formal complaint to somebody. One of the interesting things is they don't specify any way of doing these seals up. They don't say do it up to a specified torque. They don't say do it up 1.5 turns. They don't say anything at all. So I've just done it up as seemed appropriate to me. So that's an area of uncertainty. Right, just turn that off. Right, get that GPS thing out of the way. Right, now without moving this, I'm going to take this, undo this connector and see if any water comes out. Yes, it does. Well, but that doesn't necessarily prove anything, because you're allowed to have water around here. So that may not be a very diagnostic technique. You're allowed to have water in this thread because the seal is at the other end of this. The question is there any water? I can't see any water on these contacts. It's a rather irritating design, actually, this really, because you're allowed to have water there and you're allowed to have water in the gap there. So I can't necessarily prove that that was the problem, or whether the water is getting in through the little O-ring that I mentioned in the last video that seals this metal to that plastic. I think next time what I've got to do, I don't know how this is possible, maybe I've just got to hold it under water and film it very close up so that we can hopefully see if where the water is coming through. Well, I'm beginning to get suspicious of these Lumberg connectors, because when I undid this, naturally there was water on here, I expected that, but then if we pull this out, see there's an O-ring here which is supposed to keep water out of the inside of this metal cylinder, which is sealed by an O-ring on the other end when it mates with its socket. And when I withdrew this, like that, there was water on the outside of this black plastic thing, and there was also water on the inside of this cylinder, and that should not be so. And then I looked on the inside of this, which is just a little bit of plastic, and it was dry inside, and then I pulled this back and it was dry here, so that I don't think water was coming through the seal between the outside of the cable and the grommet. I think either this O-ring is not working or that O-ring is not working. But I'm beginning to lose confidence in these Lumberg connectors. I don't think I've had a problem with this plastic. These are Sorio, French, I think they are, connectors there. Maybe I'll get some plastic ones and replace these Lumberg ones. I don't know. I can't see anything theoretically wrong with this design. It's just it doesn't seem to be working in practice. Well, to be honest, I did not expect as much trouble as this with an IP68 box. I didn't have problems waterproofing the other box that I tested, but we shall just have to go on investigating until we've found what the cause of this leak is, because we cannot have a leaky box with electronics inside it. Well, actually we could. I could pop the whole electronics in epoxy or whatever, and it would be perfectly happy. But I'd rather not do it. That's not convenient from the point of view of testing stuff. So we just have to keep taking the tablets until we get better. Thanks for watching.